Hello, everybody. It's Andy here. Just want to mention a couple things up front. We got Patrick on this episode, beloved returning guest, and curse aficionado, which means we are going to have swears on this episode. So keep that in mind if you're sensitive to salty language and or listening with a child. Also, it's just a fun, rambling, long recording where we talked for a while about Patrick's veganism or lack thereof, and a bunch of other stuff. So I would say avail yourself of the timestamps liberally if you are not down to hear about a bunch of unrelated nonsense. There will be timestamps in the show notes wherever you're listening, and on our website they are linked as well as on YouTube. So you can just click on that timestamp and jump directly to that part of the episode. Anyway, take it away, Patrick.
We had a great dinner. You had
more fried chicken.
A lot of fried chicken. That was cool.
What did I have?
You ate mostly fried rice with me. You had a couple pork buns and a little bit of fried chicken. It's fine.
Andy made us order some shrimp fried rice, and it got out, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Are you telling me a shrimp fried rice?" I'm so sorry. I can't breathe. You can just cut that all out. Just do it then.
Great. Okay. Then here we are, tuck it into another fresh, out the oven episode of Lucky Paper Radio. My name is Andy. I'm here as always with my co-host, Anthony, proud pin owner, and top 8 participant, Maddox.
I'm honestly happier about the pin than the top 8, but I'm also very happy about the top 8. The salt box was so much fun. I'm sorry, I am exhausted still. However, this was a great Cube event that we did last weekend here in our right in our neck of the woods here in Baltimore.
Got to sleep in our own ding-dang bed.
It was so good. I love that part.
Yeah.
You did so well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we all did. I was just sitting there like.
Do not say we all did well.
No. I was sitting there looking at the rankings and being like, "Man, the Baltimore crew sure is showing up to this one."
We basically
and then
all
I was like,
did
"Oh wait,
well.
we pretty much." Nate did great.
Everybody that matters.
Great.
Everybody that matters did well. Yeah.
Who else did great? How'd Sal do? Not good.
Next question.
This is one of our classic tournament report episodes, which means we are, of course, joined by Patrick, also pin recipient, Doherty, a.k.a. Dirty, a.k.a. Scumboy.
So I think I'm gonna do this thing where I'm gonna point at you and I want you to hit the air horn. So I'm gonna go like this.
Here's the thing: I can't hear the points in the recording, so I'm not gonna be.
I
think it'll be totally fine.
You got a pin on there? You want to spin that bag around?
Oh, actually, it's in my house.
Oh. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
You could lie.
If you want to point at me for the air horn,
let's go back.
If you want to point at me for the air horn, I'll just say Mark every time you point at me, and then I'll have that recorded for the air horn.
What's up, everybody? So glad to be back. Shout out to all my fans and listeners.
Did I send you a picture of the review we got on iTunes? My God, hold on a second. I need to
dude.
Speaking is hard for me right now.
I show you? To practice that scatting I mentioned?
Did I show you a picture of the review we got on iTunes of the person that was lovingly parodying all of your shout-outs on the episodes you've done where you've joined us?
I don't believe so.
The title was "Shout Out to All the Parkers Out There." Good review. Thanks.
Really cool.
If you left a review, thank you.
Do you remember my early review?
Yes.
Great. I felt really good about that. I had to revise it like 3 times before iTunes let it through.
Yeah, it's only, I'm in my, how do I feel about the fact that it's buried in all these other great reviews? It's hard to say, Do I wish it was further up? I don't know,
I would have bet money that my, what do you call that? Your intro was going to be fried chicken related.
From this episode?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk about how you basically
I was for sure you were going to hit me with like Chicken Man Doherty or something.
I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that in the broad public. I'm not here to out Homie just took the mic out of the stand like he's doing a tight 5 at the stand-up.
Listeners at home, you may not realize that I just pulled the mic out of the stand so that we can really get into this. Here's all I have to say. If you've been a vegetarian, if you've been a vegan for any stretch of time...
How long roughly is your audience for this comment?
What do you say?
How long have you been vegan?
Okay, that was unclear, but I was vegan for 12 and a half years.
12 and a half years?
Yeah. Since I was fucking 21 years old. So If you're a
Now,
vegetarian,
hold on, am I going with bleeping or am I going with we're just going to allow swears and give people a warning heads up front?
Oh, that's up to you.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Yep. In a BBDD, I was. Okay, now that's good. You really buried that. If you've been a vegetarian for any period of time and you've been wondering, am I taking proper care of myself? Am I getting enough protein? Am I getting enough vitamins and minerals and other nutrients? Take this as a sign.
I love how much you tickle yourself when you're doing a little bit. You can't keep it together.
I probably look like a tomato. I feel like I'm already laughing so hard at myself. Here's your sign to eat meat again because it's awesome. It totally rocks. I feel completely vindicated, and I can tell this here because I have some friends who will literally never hear this podcast.
This is a safe space.
I just want to warn you
from like a huge group of people.
I just want to warn you. In the past, when I thought this was a safe space, maybe the author from the games book shows up and listens to the podcast. Maybe what's the other example of someone listening that I didn't think was going to listen?
That's a good one.
There's a couple other ones.
Richard Garfield.
Oh yeah, maybe Richard Garfield listens to the podcast. Like, that's not going to work. You got him on her. You can't hear that.
Do you think that potentially
that's not working?
Is it not working?
It's not. That was not the problem. Definitely we're getting a tone since you picked it up.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, so
it's fine. It's just gonna be how it is.
Well, I was just gonna say,
it's got that
I was gonna request if I could get the
sound.
mic, if I could get the mic strung upside down.
No, it's not an upside down mic.
WWE style. It's directional.
Yeah,
upside down it doesn't work.
You got to point it at your mouth. You'll notice when they hang the mic that way, they still pick it up and then point it at their mouth.
Yeah, that makes sense. So listeners, I apologize for all that bullshit that Andy just put us through. As I was saying, I started eating meat again. So, been thinking about it for some time, been feeling like perhaps I'm not taking the best care of myself. I'm sure you both know that you can eat a proper vegan diet, but most people don't do that.
Yep.
The way you put it, most of them are out here eating potato chip.
Oreo. They love the Oreo.
Which was me. And a couple of months ago, you guys put me onto Doughboys, and I've been having a blast listening to these fellas review chain restaurants and fast food.
Now there's who
Eateries.
You don't want to listen. Can you imagine Nick Weiger listening to this and being like, oh my God, I turned a guy not vegan? He would feel so guilty.
I think I'm going to write him an email.
You should.
I think I'm going to write him an email.
I think you should just send him a voice memo because they might play it on the show.
Well, maybe I'll send him a voice memo and I'll start by saying this. What's up, buddy? Yeah, you know how just sometimes you find whatever podcasters or content creators and you just vibe with them. I feel like I really connected with those guys. So I enjoy listening to them. And I'm a little white trash piece of shit. And all I needed to hear was people basically being like, yeah, Taco Bell's a 5-star restaurant. Chick-fil-A's a 5-star restaurant. And I was like, you're right. I think I need to have some of that in my life.
This really is, a little bit of a butterfly effect moment where, I'm like, hey, Patrick, I think you might enjoy this podcast. And pretty soon he is on the podcast saying, vegans, if you are listening, eat more meat.
Dissent, go back.
I mean, it's really funny to me because I've had a lot of friends that are vegetarian over the years, and I always feel like I hear a similar story of like, oh yeah, like I changed my diet and I just feel amazing now. Like I just feel great. I've got more energy. I've got all this, all that. And you've given the same spiel, and it's like, yeah, you just need to eat some meat.
Yeah, well, so it
is more work to get all the protein and stuff if you are not eating meat, which is certainly not to say you can't do it. And I think people that do that work are better people. It's good. It's better for the world. You are better than us.
Without a doubt. I have three close friends who are vegetarian or vegan.
You think they're not going to listen to this podcast?
They would literally rather kill themselves than listen to this podcast, respectfully. Anyways, they were all really not happy when I was like, I think I'm going to start eating meat again. And I think in a way that's good and caring as like a friend. They were like, don't. It's not worth it. Like, here's other things that you can do. And I got to tell you guys, not only has it been like, yes, A, fucking really delicious, but B, I feel good.
Yeah.
My body feels good.
Yeah.
And at the risk of oversharing, my digestion has been better than it's been in a decade.
Yeah. I mean, that is a trope of
yes.
vegetarians and vegans too, is they will destroy a toilet.
Yep. No, I'm super stoked. I've been fishing out. I've been chickening out.
Wait, the first noise you made was a fish?
Yeah.
It's a fish noise.
Yeah.
Hey,
Have
do
you
you
never-
think that a dolphin is a fish?
All right. Well, so that was a little inside baseball, but
Okay, let's
they
do
used to call
what
this
next?
thing that would
Make
happen
a pig
to you.
noise.
They used to call this thing that would happen to you when you get fucked up on helium as fishing out, because you'd go like this.
That's definitely a dolphin sound.
Yeah.
Dolphins are mammals.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
You
so
know
just
what-
to
you
be
know what I
clear,
mean.
this is your tournament report from the Salt Box. Fried chicken is delicious. I did see you eat 2 fried chicken sandwiches from different
Brother,
restaurants.
you ate
in
like
one
six
day.
hours-
four
6
fried
hours
chicken
apart.
meals over the course of one weekend.
I did. It was awesome. Well, and what's funny is that
And the weekend began with you being like, I think I'm going to try fried chicken.
so
We
check.
were at
We were at-
Ekeben,
we were at
like
Ekeben,
one
which
of
I
the
recommend.
best food places in Baltimore, and their fried chicken is their headline dish.
What's really funny is that I was thinking about what to have for dinner, like I said, maybe 6 hours after we had that fried chicken for lunch. And I was like, I kind of want fried chicken again, but surely that's the wrong thing to do. And I decided to get it because I was almost certain that, like, this one was going to be too much. If that makes
it would be
sense.
bad. You'd be like, okay, I found the limit. You found the line.
Yes, like 2 big-ass fried chicken meals, like, back-to-back, like, that's too much. I was like, cool, this will actually be good for me to, like, have a tummy ache and be like, maybe I should temper myself.
Yikes.
That did not happen.
You rolled the dice, brother.
I felt so good. Yeah, I got that Irish bog body. I'm ready for chicken.
Anyway, if you are out there and you're vegan or vegetarian, you can keep living your lifestyle. Patrick won't judge you. But also,
Of course.
But also, you don't have to. You
Parker.
can also eat some meat. It's fine. But you are better than meat eaters, objectively, morally, and ethically, which is cool.
Chicken parm isn't vegan?
Let's dive into our actual tournament report. We are going to go draft by draft, as we have done in the past, and maybe hit on some overall big picture impressions from the event in between. Because I got to say, I'm worried people are going to think I'm biased because this is our local event, but I think this was the best Cube event I've ever been to, and I don't think it's particularly close for a couple of reasons maybe we'll get to.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a little bit of an overview, like other events that we've done reports about in the past, this was about 64 players playing here in Baltimore, our local stomping ground. We did 4 different draft slots, so we're going to talk about 4 drafts we each did of different cubes. And yeah, I agree, the event was great. I do feel a little bit biased because, I got to sleep in my own bed, which made it that much better.
It was obviously also cheap for us to attend on
and it was
account of
cheap
not
for us
having to
to
travel,
attend.
so that has an effect certainly on our impression, but the venue was incredible.
Yeah.
The fact that it was 2 drafts a day instead of 3 was, I think, an objective level up over the other events we've been to where it's 3 drafts a day. The bathrooms at the venue,
The bathrooms were good.
A++ S-tier bathrooms.
No, absolutely not.
What?
It was a great bathroom, but there's no way it was an S-tier bathroom.
As far as public bathrooms go?
Dude, the sink was fucked up. Did you guys not have
Okay, this
weird
is-
issues with the sink?
I know how to use a sink.
Do you know what I'm talking? Hey, don't be rude.
What was wrong
Did
with the
neither
sink?
of you guys have issues with the sink? We need to
No.
get here.
I know how to use a sink.
So what's going to happen right here, listeners, is we're going to drop the call in from fan favorite, who's going to leave us a voice memo, letting everybody know what was going on with the
Okay, the
sink.
sensor was a little high. Is that the issue?
The sensor was fucked up. I think honestly was basically just saying because.
Oh, well,
So that's maybe why you guys had an easier time.
do I not count as
What?
a heretic? Anyway, I agree.
We're definitely not, glowing in the eyes of God. This event was at a church, we should say, I guess, which
Wouldn't it be funny if
maybe
this
explains
is-
why you were like, yeah.
Oh yeah. That context.
The context is pretty
context is
important.
Yeah.
Context is pretty
Those are
important.
his words.
Yeah, the event was at a church. I think we're all in this room definitely
But also just
a
speaking
little bit.
I might be singing a different tune after this weekend, fellas. I'll tell you what.
But also, yeah,
Because I did good.
just to be clear about sort of like the overall event, like I think a couple people were confused. We were not organizing this event. Max was, who's a great member of our local play group, and he did a great job just like finding a venue that's great. Like you mentioned, it was like super spacious, close to hotels and restaurants.
Beautiful.
Which went a huge way. It was
Perfect lighting.
beautiful
Beautiful stained
good lighting,
glass.
no glare in the deck picks, which is that's a dream. Yeah, and I think that. To speak to the quality of the event, I think that he just did a great job of learning from people that had hosted events previously and made some adjustments or carried through what was working well. Bones was the head judge, so he's obviously just learned a ton about how to organize these kinds of Cube events and brought all of that knowledge to just make everything run super smoothly. And I totally agree. We only did 2 drafts a day. that's the right amount for me. And because of that, I actually made top 8 instead of being near the top 8 and then dropping down just below because I didn't do the third draft, which was a lot of fun.
Some of us have made top 8 while skipping a whole draft a day, just saying.
You know what? Some of us are more powerful. Yeah, I understand.
Look, I need to get a little bit of bragging in here before I get to my tournament report, so let's just...
Yeah. No, you have done very good in the past.
Back when.
I truly don't think I ever want to go back to an event where there's 3 drafts a day.
But, I mean, you
can always just skip it, but, I mean, I think it changes the vibes.
It
and
does.
it also means that people aren't rushing to finish the second one, loosens things up a little bit,
yeah.
And also just means that, there's more people that the expectation is like you're going to figure out what you want to do in the evening, you know?
There was also like almost no attrition across the event. I feel like in a lot of previous ones, It's like day 2, maybe 75% of people show up. The last draft is maybe 30% of the people. But I think the last draft was only 5 or 10 people short. So really, really good retention, which just made overall like the vibe feel very much like everybody was engaged and having a good time right until the end.
The space was awesome. The stained glass was beautiful. Love the low light, as we already mentioned. There was a cool little basin that I think you could like wash your face in that was by the front.
Cool little drinking water basin, just like a trough for drinking water right out of.
The event was also called the Salt Box, which is named after this thing that we do. Apparently just in Baltimore, the city puts out boxes of salt on the sidewalks, and in England, apparently.
Yeah. There are other places they do it, but the Baltimore Salt Box is it's got a Wikipedia page.
And it's iconic. They're bright yellow. They're just for people to like salt their sidewalks, and so Max sort of took that icon and ran with it because, people get salty at Magic events. And it was fun. He actually had a full-size salt box on the stage. People were like signing it and graffitiing on it, which was fun.
That was more fun than I thought it was going to be.
I thought it was pretty cool.
If we haven't said it directly, this was Max's event and his brainchild, and he did a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, full credit to Max.
Yep. Oh, I will just quickly say, I do want to give an honorable mention. I think I agree. And of course, there's a bias that's impossible to separate because I got to sleep in my own bed.
I mean, also, Max has had all of the lessons learned by all the other Cube event organizers past.
So the next one's going to be even better.
Yeah, I mean, Boston Cube Party 2 could be even more goated. We're going to find out.
Without a doubt. The only other thing I do want to say is I would like to give an honorable mention to what Scotty's been doing in New York. Most notably, you two did not make it up to the second Cube for a Cause.
It's true.
They changed the whole playing venue. It was in a much bigger, more accommodating
it looked
room.
really good.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I do really love that event. Having like a little Japanese market like right next door is really convenient.
That is true. Get your favorite soup.
Yeah, so really enjoyed that one as well. Chicken soup. Is that what you were saying?
No.
Do you want to talk about when you sent me fucking all the desiccated chicken carcasses?
No, but that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. Kind of related, actually. I think that Hannah and I would like to learn how to dismember a whole chicken and cook
absolutely.
it soup to nuts.
I think this is a great time for us to have this conversation.
I'd like to just putting it out there.
Yeah. Always happy to teach cooking skills.
All right, let's talk about our Saturday morning draft. I will go first. So this event had 2 of my own cubes in it out of the 8 cubes on offer, maybe 9. It wasn't a ton of cubes because it was a small event, and 2 of them were mine. I thought about going in and saying, I want to avoid these cubes, but instead I went full random. My thought process was, hey, I want people that are visiting Baltimore for this event to get to draft whatever cubes they want to play. And if that means more people want to play some other cube and not my own cubes, and I can fill out a pod for my own cube, then great. And I did get put in one of my own cubes, the Neoclassical cube, for the first draft of the weekend. We've talked about this cube a bunch on the show. We'll link some more resources down in the show notes. But this is an old school cube that is all about embodying the sort of play patterns of old school Magic. I drafted a Sultai Recurring Nightmare deck, which had a really solid mid-range game plan, just play good creatures, attack your opponent, get him dead, reanimate something, go off, and also had a combo finish with a kind of convoluted line with Deranged Hermit, Earthcraft, Recurring Nightmare, and a sack outlet. You can just make a bunch of mana, cast a bunch of spells, and for that reason, I also had Yawgmoth's Will and Tendrils of Agony in the main deck because that would give me a line, even in a game where I was otherwise beat, to potentially win out of nowhere with a combo. And round 1, I played Sylvia, who ended up, spoiler alert, winning the whole event. Congratulations to Sylvia. Fantastic opponent. And she had what I thought was one of the sickest decks I've ever seen from this cube, which was a classic sort of blue-white artifact ramp deck with balance and upheaval. And one thing she specifically did that I have not seen anybody else do is really abuse a like otherwise fair attunement. Attunement is this 2 and a blue enchantment. It's in the cube that has one ability. You can just return it to your hand to draw 3 cards and discard 4 cards, which is mostly there for the Madness deck, for Reanimator decks, for decks that actively want to discard, which Sylvia's deck mostly did not. I mean, she had like a deep analysis, right? Like, that's cool-ish with attunement, but for the most part, she did not want to discard, but she did care about finding specific cards in certain combinations and just use that as card selection to find what she needed. And then against me in one game, use it intentionally to just empty her hand, basically, to then balance me to Mind Twist me, which was pretty sick.
That is pretty cool.
Very, very cool. Sylvia's deck crushed me. I lost 0-2 and was happy to do it. I will say it was cool in this match. I didn't get a chance to combo off, but there were lines that I would have just scooped to the upheaval if my deck was just mid-range. It's like, well, I'm never winning evermore. Like, you just upheaval, you're still at 8. Like, I'm never going to get in for 8 damage. Just go to the next game. But here, I had an out. I was like, actually, if I draw Yogg's Will and Earthcraft, like, I could actually win from this spot just by casting 2 spells and spending 5 mana, so I'm going to, like, play it out. And it was cool to have that combo out in the deck so that I actually had something to, like, play towards even in otherwise desperate spots. But didn't get to pull it off, and Sylvia got me 2-0. Round 2, I played friend of the show and local Gold Cube enjoyer, Daniel Wheatley. I honestly cannot remember what Daniel was playing. I looked at this tournament. I looked at this report here of you played Daniel Wheatley, and I can't remember what he was playing. I honestly don't even remember playing him. I was like, oh yeah, I do kind of vaguely remember now we got paired, but I can't remember what it was.
Oh, I can explain. He was playing a 4-color deck.
I don't think he
Actually,
was.
And he was drafting it face
He told
up.
me he was trying really hard to like draft a little more tightly and not do 4-color nonsense in every draft.
Well, he eventually did just lean into that and then
sure
got a
did.
trophy pin the very
did.
last draft of the day. Anyway, I beat Daniel 2-1. I forget what he was on, but I thought my deck was strong and it did its thing. And then in round 3, I played David from Asheville, and I got there 2-0 against David, so finished 2-1 in my own cube. It felt a little embarrassing playing my own cube because I didn't want people to think that I like intentionally chose it to like try and spike it or whatever, but nevertheless had a good time and thought my day was off to a decent start. You were also in this pod, though, Patrick.
It's definitely for the best that you didn't spike it.
So you could win?
No, not even that. I just mean because people would be like, boo, 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 boo.
I came to Baltimore and all I got was my ass kicked in by this guy's own cube.
I guess we're all swearing now.
I think maybe yeah. Did not opt into Neoclassical and definitely wasn't annoyed, but I was like, oof, I really was hoping to draft one of the 2 out-of-town cubes that I don't get to draft very much. But was still happy to see you and Daniel and Friendly Faces in the draft. And honestly, what I'm about to say I think stands for most of the drafting that I did this weekend. I really didn't feel like I was drafting in the sense that I got a bunch of like crazy rewarding payoffs. I felt like I was drafting a little bit the hard way, still trying to stay open, but just kind of fighting tooth and nail for some good stuff and some synergies. I ended up in an Abzan sort of mid-range deck, which is, needless to say, not necessarily my comfort zone as far as decks that I play. And I just tried to hang in there and take my time, and I'm actually really proud of how I played. I went 2-1 against Logan from Pikesville, who now lives in D.C., who I think you know. They took game 1 off me. Game 2, I ended up having an aggressive start, but they ended up giving me card advantage with Anvil of Bogarden. I think that was very helpful for me. And then game 3, really tight. Ended up winning while they had a meager Manifel Spectre in play, which felt cool because I was really sitting on the edge of my seat, waiting for any type of like big wheel. Round 2, I played Sylvia from Milwaukee, the aforementioned Sylvia from Milwaukee, the Saltbox Grand Champion. And I went 2-0, which was awesome. Played some really close games. As you mentioned, she was doing like kind of big mana control, Brain Geyser stuff, which we love to see. One of my favorite decks to play in that environment.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Patrick, I, after seeing your deck list, was like, I wish I could watch these games. I do not understand nothing about, player skill or whatever. Just looking at your deck list and having seen all of Sylvia's deck, because you drew the entire thing against me twice, I was like, I don't understand how you won, but you got there regardless. You made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't even take a game off me.
I think that was her only match loss the whole weekend.
I think that might be true. So that's pretty neat for me. Yeah.
In a way that kind of makes you the winner, don't you think?
I would never be so bold as to say something like that, but if that's what you think out there, listener, I'll let you decide. No, I just want to be clear. I feel like I kind of kept having this happen over and over, but we had close games, and it wasn't a blowout. And I think there were moments where I felt like maybe I wanted to fucking give up, and I just decided not to. I think game 1, I did have like a much more aggressive start, just getting a couple bears out there and kind of riding them to victory. And game 2 was much longer. It was like a 30-minute game maybe. She did indeed upheaval, and I was able to get another bear down after a couple of turns and then drop Rancor. I think Rancor really helped me out in that game. I vindicated her Tolarian Academy at a pretty crucial moment when she, I think, was going to be able to untap and then Brain Geyser me for the rest of my deck. And it was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I went on to congratulate her after she won, and I went over and I was like, hey, good job. That's so fucking cool. How do you feel? And she was like, well, I don't feel that different. I was like, okay, well, cool. That's awesome.
So chill.
That
So
rock.
chill.
I was like, that's crazy, but that's cool. She was like, to be honest with you, the only thing I'm really feeling is frustrated about how our matchup went. And I was like, oh no, you just won. You just won everything.
That's how you know that she's a good player. She's
won
thinking about
almost everything.
She's thinking about the one loss and how she could have done a little different.
Yep.
I will say, too, that I was actually, as a Cube designer, thrilled that you pulled that match off in 2-0 fashion because, again, I would have thought, looking at your deck list, like, oh, I mean, in this Cube, just these kinds of decks really struggle against decks that are just going to balance and upheaval them and do unfair stuff, and yet you won. So, as a Cube designer, I'm like, I'm so glad this deck can compete against these decks that are kind of playing on a different axis.
Totally. I think that my favorite, my most rewarding moment of that matchup was that she did hit me with Fact of Fiction, and it was so stressful.
Did you say Fact of Fiction?
Fact of Fiction?
It's Fact or Fiction.
I think I said Fact or Fiction.
I think you said it right.
Oh, well, if only this was recorded, I guess we'll find out. I'll play it again right here for you listeners. You decide.
Fact of Fiction. Fact of Fiction. No, he's going to have to edit himself out because he's going to feel like a dumbass for mishearing me.
You just have to make it so I can't possibly edit it out by weaving a couple things into the next things you say. Yeah.
And it was really, really tough because it did indeed have a deep analysis in there, and I think a balance and a Karn and a Tolarian Academy, and it was like crazy. I was like, well, what the fuck do I do here? And she told me that I did a good job.
Nice. That feels good.
And made it hard.
Nothing feels better.
That was rewarding.
Then when your opponent casts Fact or Fiction, you make the piles, and then they like go in the tank. You're like, yes, we did it. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. And then round 3 was a very nice person named Scott from Philadelphia. I ended up going 2-1. Also had close games. They were playing a pretty fun and consistent reanimate deck, and I just ended up getting there in my first matchup. Withered Wretch was crucial.
Oh yeah,
which I do believe is just main deckable here, and I was playing it in all my matches, but I drew into that game 1, and that was really important. And yeah, the biggest thing that I have to say about this is that I feel like most of the time when I play Magic, I don't feel fucking stressed, and by the trophy matchup, I felt like I was having heart palpitations, and it was really thrilling. It was awesome. Yeah,
and you got there.
Yeah.
First draft, trophy done, pin acquired. Now you can just take it easy the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, so how do you feel? Do you feel
Goals
like
achieved.
Motivated after that first victory, or do you feel like...
Like, were you thinking top 8 after that first victory? We were like, 2 more drafts, I just got to do, well enough in?
Or were you just like, I got what I came here for, I can chill?
To be totally honest with you guys, I think this is maybe only my second 3-0 in a Cube competitive setting. I think I trophied the first year at CubeCon before anyone was giving out pins. And as you both know, I feel like, when I showed up like 3.5, 4 years ago, I was 0-3ing every week. And I just was like, I want to learn to get better, and I want to keep doing this. And I certainly do 3-0 sometimes, but I don't think that I trophy nearly as much as some of my peers. And it felt really good to be able to just like not give up and play well and win a trophy, and I do feel like it really helped me feel confident and also feel relaxed heading into the rest of the tournament.
That's awesome.
Real quick before we get to Anthony's report, I did remember that I live posted all of this on Blue Sky, and I checked, and Daniel was playing Green, White, Enchantress, and I do now remember that he did take a game off of me with a combination of humility and mobilization. But
oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, but I did eventually get there. Anyway, sorry Daniel for forgetting what you were playing. I've checked and remembered.
He's also not listening.
That's true. He's actually much more likely, in my opinion, to not be listening than your friends.
No, dude. These 3 guys would literally probably cut off their own dicks to listen to this podcast.
I mean, until somebody tells them, did you hear Patrick was talking about you on this podcast? Then they'll listen to it.
We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see.
So I did my usual bit of, I just excluded regular cube and otherwise went full random. Just didn't want to play my own cube. That's not reasonable. I ended up in the oldest school.
Okay, wow, dragged.
Got him. I ended up in the oldest school, which is our friend Alex's cube, and I actually talked with a bunch of people about this, how this cube, like your Neoclassical cube, are similar in some ways, that there are, a lot of old cards and like weird old interactions, but they feel so different to draft.
Yeah, and Max specifically allowed us both to play these unsleeved for the tournament, which nobody else that has had the Neoclassical cube at it has allowed it to be unsleeved on account of the many marked cards.
Which I think speaks a lot to kind of, again, like what the tone of the event was, that it was definitely a little bit more casual, and, people were showing up with the expectation that, yeah, there's a bunch of clearly marked cards, but we're here to play reasonably and not try and take advantage of that. And I think overall, yeah, people did. I feel like the Neoclassical cube is much more about specific card interactions and like really specific archetypes, like types of decks you can build, whereas the oldest school is a lot more about just finding ways to generate value and cast big dragons and like weird wacky things that might come up occasionally but aren't necessarily the whole focus of your deck. And that's exactly how I felt, having some funny combinations like Chimes of Night, or an aura that doesn't do anything except when it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, you destroy a creature. And Endless Worm, that is a gigantic creature, but you have to sacrifice an enchantment at the beginning of each upkeep. And one time I got to do that, and it felt super cool.
That is cool.
So I ended up in, my first pick was Ancient Craving. I was just like, you know what? Just like card advantage is so important here. I'm ready to go into this. Taking card advantage, taking efficient removal. Drafted a green-black deck with Sengir Vampire and Vertaloth the Ancient. Like, draft one, we got to make some Saprolings. I had a ton of fun with this deck. My first matchup against Nate, I won that and then played against Parker in my second round. He was playing a cool green sort of like elf deck, and it was kind of interesting. My deck included Eladamri's Vineyard, which is a symmetrical mana ramp. Everybody gets 2 extra green mana, so it was like, this is pretty dangerous to be playing against Parker, but I just had like bigger stuff and sort of navigating, especially playing stuff like Stripe Bears with Stampeding Wild Beast, which forces you to pick up a card every turn. Specifically a green creature. Close match. I think I killed him in my second game of that match, only having dealt damage with Sengir Vampire, which was kind of funny. And then in the finals, faced off against Monica. She had a really cool sort of black-red Dragons deck, which is honestly the deck that I was kind of hoping to get into, but I just felt like green was more open after feeling good about like the black removal suite I was building. That match was so close. Like, we went to game 3, and it literally came down to a turn where we're both like, this is where the game matters, and there's so much stuff on board. I had a Royal Assassin. She had a creature that she could sacrifice to shock something, and creatures that were pumping each other's power. It was just really, really tight, and she just found the line where it was like, oh yeah, it felt like one of us is going to win next turn, and it's definitely going to be you after this point, because I've got nothing left here in play. So I was a little bit disappointed not to get that first trophy pin, but it was a really fun match overall. Like, I would just say that so many of these games in this draft and in all my drafts just felt like they really did come down to like pivotal moments, and everything was really close. It was always like, yeah, if I don't win this turn, you're winning next turn. And that was really fun about the gameplay overall.
Something that you just reminded me of that I don't think I touched on, and that I think is on the top of my head because of the episode that listeners will have heard just a couple of weeks ago about gameplay etiquette, and the vibes were immaculate. I didn't have one person who really salted off. I didn't have one person who was like weird or awkward. Yes, which is great. And I do not think I can say for every Cube event that I've been to. Yeah,
there's always a couple people that maybe don't have quite the right mentality for the event they're at. They're playing it a little too competitive or whatever, but not here. Partially maybe because of Max's decision to play 2 of the cubes unsleeved. Maybe some people looked at that and said, I'm not going to this event because
that's a fair point.
Like, I think some of those decisions really do matter. So
Monica, also great opponent. Also, I learned later, is an enthusiast of Chinese cookery, and like we didn't get a chance to talk about that much, but like that's a thing that is really exciting about these events to me, is sort of getting to know a little bit about people. So next time we're in the same city, I want to talk more about Chinese cookery.
This is Monica from Philadelphia?
I think so.
Yeah, that's actually what reminded me of the comment I just made, because I played her in the 4th match, and she was an awesome opponent. Yeah, good vibes.
Potentially early candidate for Cube Person of the Year.
That's right.
Could be.
That's right.
Better watch your heels, Ollie. All right, Saturday afternoon, I, once again, full random, queue up into Ship of Theseus, which is, I guess actually Parker's just calling this Cube Theseus now. No longer Ship of Theseus.
Trying to make it a little bit more approachable.
What makes it more approachable?
Ship of Theseus.
Used to be a ship. We've swapped out a bunch of parts. Now it's more like a coat closet. I don't know. An armoire.
I don't get the bit, but anyway, it's fine. I'm playing Parker's Cube Theseus, and I ended up drafting a blue-black sort of tempo deck. I had 8 threats in the form of Elusive Otter, Deathrite Shaman. I'm sorry, 9 threats. Things like Eureka, Ethereal Forager, Stormwing Entity, Vendilion Click, just, some good stuff. I missed a couple there. I see you're counting. I'm not going to read them all. I got a lot of threats. I have 2 copies of Daze. This cube does break Singleton for various spells. And this is Parker's, sort of power maxi kind of cube that is all about playing efficient magic. So I have 2 copies of Daze. I have 2 copies of Inquisition of Kozilek. I have 2 copies of Brainstorm. And I just kind of have this blue-black tempo deck, which is exactly the kind of deck I like to lose with. I should say I was splashing green here for With the Bloom Command and Once Upon a Time, and my mana could easily support it. It was not an ambitious splash whatsoever.
That looks sick, Andy.
I thought it was okay, Patrick, and went into round 1 and had some really tight games, and also I noticed I made a couple of pretty obvious mistakes, which was kind of a bummer, but I did get there 2-1 in round 1 playing against Seth. Shouts out to Seth. Round 2, queue into Anthony. Local,
should I jump in and
Cube
talk
Spike.
about my draft first?
Yeah, why don't you talk about your deck and your round 1, and then we'll get to our round 2.
So I was not feeling like this is the environment that I'm super comfortable in. I like the lower powered, a little more janky cube. This is I'm looking at the first pack, and I'm like, this is hyper efficient, super cheap removal, super cheap threats. My deck ended up having 1 4-drop, which is Grief, if you even want to call that a 4-drop, 1 3-drop in Liliana the Last Hope. I first picked Inti and was like, okay, maybe this is a direction. I feel like I want to just kind of hard commit to red. Bone Crusher Giant was an early pick, and then kind of felt like black was the next thing that felt kind of the most open. So ended up in just a really low curving, really efficient deck with a lot of hand hate, a lot of efficient removal, and efficient threats, especially with stuff like Tiny Bones and Croxa. I faced Saloff in the first round. He was honestly just stretching to do both too many colors and trying to do multiple different strategies at once with things like Scion of Draco, but also Titania with not that many fetch lands.
Drag him Queen.
I think it was, we were talking through this, he was learning about what he could have done differently, and I won that match pretty handily. And then you and I faced off in the second round.
Yeah, and these games were pretty decisive. You beat me 2-0, and I definitely felt like I got better decked. I was like, yeah, Anthony drafted a much better deck than I have here. The one thing I felt is, I had 2 kind of feelings. One is it seemed like your threats were just better, which I think maybe you were in a more open lane or just drafted better.
It also felt a little bit I felt fairly in control because after 1 piece of hand disruption, I saw your ninjas and felt like I could navigate that fairly easily.
Well, yeah, what I should say is a lot of my cards just don't do anything if I'm behind.
Right.
So if I'm playing against a deck that's going to be putting pressure on me, it's like, all right, well, Eureka and Ethereal Forager look pretty bad, and Miss Syndicate Naga does nothing, and Storming Entity is really slow. I just felt like I did not have the turn the corner kind of threats that I might need for that matchup. But more importantly, I was feeling like a relative lack of removal. My deck had 1 Go for the Throat, 1 With the Bloom Command, a Petty Theft on Brazen Borrower, Liliana of the Veil, and Pylon. And I told Parker afterwards that it really felt like a card like Pylon was just really outclassed here in terms of efficiency. We're playing multiple copies of Monastery Swift Spear and, Brainstorm and Inquisition of Kozilek, and Pylon just felt pretty outclassed. And yeah, it just felt like once you hit a creature that was going to accrue value over time, I was kind of out of the game. So definitely just felt like I got kind of smoked, which is fine. I think getting smoked by a better deck is all right. And going into round 3, I played against Sam, and she had a Abzan deck, if memory serves, at least definitely green-white. No, it was fully Abzan for sure, because there were just 2 cards I could not beat in Sam's deck. One was Lingering Souls, and my deck just...
I heard this from multiple people.
My deck was Miss Syndicate Naga, Vendilion Click, Brazen Borrower are all 3/1s. I have no way to remove multiple creatures with any individual card. I have to 1-for-1 removal people along the way. So if I didn't daze, I guess, both halves of Lingering Souls, I was just not winning. The other card I really, really struggled to beat was Endurance. They had Endurance, which is 3/4 reach flash, and I have one go for the throat, one pylon, and otherwise I have to get them down to no creatures so I can down-tick Liliana the Veil to get them to sacrifice it, or I put it back in their hand and hope they don't have mana up so they're going to just flash it back in again. There I felt like, dang, I guess my deck does not really work in this environment. Like, I drafted this color combination wrong. This is not what you're supposed to do in blue-black here, because I really felt like the cards that I had in my deck just couldn't hang. So ended that draft 1-2 and was a little bummed for sure, but it was the kind of deck I like losing with. I mean, I like just casting a bunch of cheap interaction and cantrips and losing along the way. So wasn't too salty about it, and got to watch a really exciting finals between you and Julian.
Yeah, so I went into the finals against Julian, who was on an episode recently talking about the Turbo Cube, but also is legitimately a Pro Tour player and is extremely, extremely skilled. I did not really feel like I had a chance just because I know what caliber player he is. Lost game one. He was playing a deck that was it
blue-red.
It was blue-red, right. But
and more controlling.
Blue, very controlling. You said light on counterspells, but I felt it was very heavy on counterspells.
I think he had like 4.
I mean, but he also had like Snapcaster Mage.
He did have Snapcaster Mage to recast
Ethereal
them or something.
Maybe he had ways to buy them back.
Let me see if he posted his deck on Blue Sky. You keep talking.
It just felt like once it got to a point where he had like 4 cards in hand, I was just never able to resolve anything. So game 1, I was off to a quick start, got him down to a pretty low life total, but eventually he turned the corner, and I was just never able to resolve anything until he found a way to, just kill me in a couple turns with the big dragon. So down a game against a better player, was not feeling like this was the match for me. Game 2, I got a quicker start and like really focused on trying to press that early advantage because, again, I knew like once he turned that corner and got a bunch of cards in hand, he was going to be able to just keep control of the game, and did manage to get him to a pretty low life total and then eke out, going around counterspells here and there, chipping in for the last couple damage with some burn. So then game 3, again, I think all of my round 3s all also went to game 3s. It was just like maximum tension the whole way. And this game was a grind. It's like he cast fairly early a Treasure Cruise, and you said you were over in the peanut gallery just like, oh, well, that's the game. And I definitely felt that way because, again, it's just like once he has enough
I think specifically you had like basically no board presence at the time that the Treasure Cruise resolved, and I was like, well, that seems bad for our hero.
And like
no
we
offense
just
to Julian for not being our hero.
ground through it. I felt like there was a really interesting turn or sequence of turns where I also had Urza's Saga in my deck. And I think this is one of the better implementations of Urza's Saga that I've managed to pull off because I also had a couple incidental, a Scrabbling Claws, a Pyrite Spellbomb, and a Mishra's Bauble, so I was trying to keep those in play to actually make Urza's Saga into like a real set of threats that was going to be difficult to interact with counterspells and be able to push past his creatures. And I just felt like I had lethal on board, and he was not sweating it and just dismantled my board state. And I was like, yeah, like you just see everything here and you're in control. So at that point, I really felt like I was not going to get there, but managed to escape Croxa multiple times and through that, again, just like find enough damage that I got there, got my trophy pin, and it was really exhilarating. I mean, this was so much more tense than my later rounds, which maybe should have felt more tense, but yeah, I was really excited to win a 3-0. It felt good.
I'm glad I found his list on Blue Sky because there are way more counterspells than I thought. There is Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, Counterspell, Drown in the Lock, Spell Stutter Sprite, Force of Negation, and Cryptic Command, Force of Will. So 9.
Cryptic Command. I did not see that.
9, which was quite a few counterspells for sure. What he didn't have was very much removal. I'm seeing 1 Murderous Cut, Drown in the Lock again, which plays double duty as removal spell or counterspell, and then a Lightning Bolt and a Strangle, both of which might struggle with.
I mean, you say light on removal. That's a fair amount.
Well, I don't think it is because he was most afraid of Croxa. He has 2 answers to resolve Croxa in his deck, which is Murderous Cut and Drown in the Lock. And Drown in the Lock is likely not to work, frankly, because of how Drown in the Lock cares about cards in your opponent's graveyard. So, and you have to escape Croxa, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know that we said everyone had good vibes, and I don't think Julian was too sour, but he was definitely like. He said at the end, like, I guess I should have just taken Croxa because I should have hate picked it because I can never beat that card. And I think he really felt like he just kind of lost to Croxa despite...
I agree.
Despite playing really well. I mean, he did play really well. Like, watching him kind of scrape and scrap and try to, like, get there eventually was pretty cool. And it was a really exciting final to get to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I also will admit that I felt like I got really lucky in terms of my draws. Like, I think I started Monastery, Swiftspear into Inti, which, Inti died every time, but it was still felt like...
Forcing them to kill it,
Yeah, drawing into some of my best cards every game. Had another fun beginning where I was like, oh, okay, surveil land, put Dark Confidant in the yard, and then try and reanimate it. And he's like, no. this is not happening. But yeah, it was also like, it was illuminating to me the fact that like I looked up after the game and there's like 8 people standing around. I was like, oh, I did not notice you all were here because I was so into this.
It was fun to watch.
I was just debating whether or not I should say this, but I feel like if you're that good, you can't be like, if they get salty, it's like whatever. He fucking wins like 9 out of 10.
Well,
matchups he ever plays.
To be fair, I can imagine if you were as good as Julian is, it might be frustrating to lose when you feel like you are outplaying your opponent. Like if you're noticing multiple mistakes they are making.
I'm feeling outplayed.
Like if you're noticing multiple mistakes they're making and they're still just winning because their cards are better, I can see how that would maybe lead to you being like, all right, Cube Designer.
I learned a lot about how to use Scrabbling Claws. Thanks, Scrabbling Claws.
Scrabbling Claws is cool.
I agree.
I also drafted Parker's Theseus Cube on...
We're going out of order now.
Well, I mean...
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about the same environment, right? So I drafted it Sunday morning. I feel like certainly not in all ways, but in some ways it felt reminiscent of the Bun Magic Cube, which I thought was cool, and I enjoyed. Definitely not in the art legibility department, though.
I learned that some of my cards were instants halfway through the draft, or halfway through the matches.
I was a little surprised, honestly, to see the cards choices in Parker's Cube, because I feel like Parker shares a lot of our value and import on clarity and legibility, but Parker also just loves that, like, fucking hard rock, heavy metal Terminate, and so that's just what you get, or Dreadbore, or whatever it is. Is it both of them?
Both.
Oh, God. Okay.
I have a brackets here that says, I'll let Andy speak on that, and you did indeed.
Wow, you got him.
Yeah, there's a ton of fucking full art and crazy cuckoo bananas
but I think like
stuff going on.
He has multiple cubes, and I think he's sort of made this one the space where he does that, and it's like...
Yeah, I get it.
Look, he gets it. So I drafted a Mardu aggro deck, and I don't even know if it's what I think I necessarily wanted to do when I sat down, but it's just the lane that found me, and I was feeling good about it. I ended up going 2-1. However, that 1 was my first matchup to a gentleman named Dustin from Nashville, who was a nice guy who was playing a lean Is It Spells deck. And honestly, I'm just never mad to lose to like a good Spellslinger deck or a good aggro deck, because at least I feel like they just get it over quickly.
Fast. Rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the kind of thing that I mean, I love slinging spells. I love pushing damage. Like, I'm all about that. And he was a mad lad who was also running Embercleave, which was sick. So yeah, that was over quick. He went 2-0 in that first matchup. My second matchup, I got to play Emma, who is a little bit of my local bracket demon. Mm-hmm. She's from our local play group, and she's very, very good. I also lost heavily to her recently in some games from a rotisserie draft that we did, in a way that felt a little annoying. What do you call those?
Salt off.
Yeah, well, no, it's the same shit you're just talking about. It's the Titan thing. I like drafted Cling to Dust and some other graveyard hate and sided it in, and was just like punished because the game went long enough and she had 7 mana and was able to just cast Flage and then escape it, and
you found out that you don't get priority between those things to actually Cling to Dust it. Yeah,
which I'd never seen, and I just lost handily. But anyways, she won game 1, so I was down a game, which is, again, Zach likes to talk about playing from behind. It really is fun. What I always say after I lose game 1 is, so you're telling me there's a chance I just have to win the next 2. And game 2...
Accurate.
Yeah, the game 2 I won, it was tough. I will say there's this card called Saskia the Unyielding, which is a fucked up 4-color commander card.
This is also a funny card to see in this cube, but...
Look, it's Parker's Cube.
Do you guys know this card?
Oh, yeah. All too well.
Oh, yeah.
We were playing Commander when this was a card in Commander, so we know this card all too well.
I had never seen it before, and I was like, what the fuck?
Choose an opponent? What?
Yeah, I was like, and then I found out it was just, it's when every creature you have deals damage.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
It is definitely, respectfully, the kind of thing that I would expect to see in Reading Rainbow.
Is it not in there? It probably is.
And maybe not here. But either way, it felt fucking cool to be able to hang in and beat that card. I did indeed draw into a Path to Exile at the exact right time, even after a turn before she had reanimated my Solitude to remove like my major blocker. And then I ended up winning game 3, which was a really tight game as well. I mean, extremely tight back and forth games. And I think maybe one of the first times that the protection on Sun Gold Sentinel felt really relevant and really helped me win a game, which was awesome.
Yeah, that does matter.
Yep. Yeah, shout out to Wandering Emperor, which I played, which was great. And I just thought it was interesting. You and I talked a little bit about this, but Emma and Gabor had both mentioned that they associate Mardu aggro with me as a player, which I don't necessarily think of as myself, but ton of fun. Here's what I want to say. I want to take a quick aside to just say, you're looking good, brother. You got these slutty little Hoka. How do you say, Hoka?
Don't mention my orthopedic old man shoes that I have for my plantar fasciitis.
You got these slutty little Hoka slides, and you're looking kind of like a fuckboy, but also kind of just like a plantar fasciitis daddy.
Kind of like a 37-year-old with plantar fasciitis.
I don't know. I'm just saying, you're looking good.
Kind of like someone in his mid-30s training for a half marathon.
Also, you're twinning me. You're wearing the same color slacks as I am right now.
Thank you. I appreciate this, Patrick.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
It's nice to compliment your friends.
I was going to save it till the end, but I couldn't help it.
Okay.
I drafted Daniel's Reading Rainbow Cube for my second cube of the day. And I love that environment. That's the environment where I expect to see commander cards that I've never heard of before.
It is true. I get way less mad at those cards there because it's like, well, this is what this is for.
Right.
This is like their home.
Just like the Doughboys say, it's all about, are they delivering on their promise?
Absolutely. Yeah, Reading Rainbows is a 5/4 cube. So I did the Classico one base color, kind of just like force aggro, because I was already feeling like I didn't want to think too much about what I was doing, and I had just gotten whatever like put into that cube, and I was like, cool, I'm just going to do this thing that I've done before.
This is right on the back of you saying you had heart palpitations playing in the finals of the Neoclassical Cube.
Yeah, precisely.
For people keeping their timeline straight.
Yeah, so I did a base red aggro with some burn deck. And it was a good deck. I really liked what I was doing. I did, however, get matched up with Keldon from Seattle, who is a very good player and was playing an extremely better, more aggressive token-generating deck, which was honestly awesome.
Keldon was playing hot this weekend and came out of the first 3 rounds in the number 1 seed.
That's correct. They were doing a great job. So I went 0-2, and again, just like never mad to lose to a really lean, efficient deck like that. I want to shout out a little bit. They've got this Outlaws Merriment. You guys know about this token generating enchantment?
Oh my god, yes. That was the scourge of that limited format.
It's
one of the
so
scourges.
fucking good. Yeah. It's crazy how strong it is. So that was crazy. They had like a Lingering Souls lookalike that I can't remember what it was. They had a different enchantment that lets you tap creatures or tokens to make treasure. And then they also had...
Yeah, I know that one.
They also had the creature that makes tokens that when they tap, they deal damage. So there was a ton of just like aggressive tokens and synergy, and they were ramping, and it was awesome. So really, shouts to Keldon for that sick deck.
Shouts to Keldon.
Shout out to Keldon.
Round 2 was Scotty Mertz from Brooklyn, New York.
Shouts to Scotty Mertz.
I did end up going 2-0. I had some pretty aggressive starts on that. I won game 1 pretty handily. Game 2 was, as Scott referred to, as Unblockable Tribal. I had a Renegade Wheelsmith and a Thunder Song Trumpeter, which were both awesome. Probably not as fun or fair for Scott, unfortunately. I do like it when we have closer games, but got that out of the way quickly, and then we spent some time outside, which was nice. And then round 3, I lost some very, very close games to a gentleman named Vinny, who's from somewhere local. Or close to
Vinny's local.
That I can't remember.
I saw Vinny a couple times over the weekend. Vinny did some really disgusting and awesome shit in the 100 Ornithopters Cube.
Vinny is a great player, and I really enjoyed my time playing with them, and I invited them to join us on a Tuesday.
Sick.
So perhaps they will.
Hopefully Vinny comes out.
Yeah, I ended up going 1-2 in that matchup. We went to game 3. I had an extremely crucial deflecting palm moment, which...
Most of them are.
Yeah, I mean,
if you cast Deflecting Palm, it tends to be an extremely crucial moment. Otherwise, you just die with it in hand.
You don't want to waste it. Yeah. No, they were on an Esper Tempo deck that was really sick. They won game 2, and then I think the only other honorable mention I have here is this card, Dorothea. You guys know this one?
Mm-mm.
It's
not by name, at least.
It's like a 2-drop that when you attack, it makes a 4/4 attacking flyer, and then you have to sacrifice it, and then you can disturb it from your graveyard, and it becomes an aura that gives another creature that same ability.
Oh, I know this one.
But then they had multiple ways to copy the creature from other creatures, so they were just like not really getting much of it. Well, this downside was still there, but they were just doing it like over and over again.
Dang.
It was awesome. And then, yeah, game 3 was, I think, my only one that I felt like I really had bad beats from some mana and some draws, and I just couldn't eke it out, but I still had a ton of fun. And then moving on to the evening, I've got an honorable mention here to Gabe's Weenies deck, which is directly inspired by Parker's Pulp Nouveau and my Tupelo Honey Cube.
Oh, you were in that draft, right?
Yeah, which was really cool to see. So it's 2 mana value and less.
Shout out to Gabe.
Desert Cube, and I had a blast playing that. I did end up dropping after 1 or 2 matches because I was fucking so tired, but really cool to see.
Nice. Yeah, there was also a draft of the Turbo Cube. I handed that off to some folks that were interested in playing it, and I kind of wish I'd been there to see more of the games. I watched a little bit of the draft, but got some very funny commentary from Roja, including Monica, saying drafting the Turbo Cubes feels like drafting a kidney stone, which I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Not sure what to make of that, but
I know.
it's evocative. It's evocative of something.
Sorry,
I spaced out for a second. You said Roja said drafting the Turbo Cube was like passing
Monica
it.
did, yeah.
Oh, Monica was like...
It was like drafting a kidney stone.
It's
What the hell does
painful,
that
and you
mean?
just got to work your way through it. Like, there's only one way out.
It's funny because it's also not how I've ever felt about the Turbo Cube. Like I feel like
I thought you were going to say that's not how you felt about kidney stones.
No, they're terrible. But the
Oh my, have you had kidney stones?
I think I had a little tiny one once.
Whoa.
Oh, because your dick couldn't handle a really big one, you're saying? It would have to
Yeah,
come out,
that's why.
It would have to come out the back.
Anyway, it was fun to hear a bunch of people having a good time with the Turbo Cube and, just exploring what that's all about. We had a great dinner. You had
More fried chicken.
a lot of fried chicken. That was cool.
What did I have?
You ate mostly
No,
fried
we
rice
had-
with
we
me. You had a couple pork buns
No,
and a little bit of fried chicken. It's fine.
Andy made us order some shrimp fried rice, and it got out, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Are you telling me a shrimp fried rice?" I'm so sorry. I can't breathe. You can just cut that all out.
Oh man.
All
right, look.
Shout out to Kong. We love Kong.
Yeah, Kong Poka.
Kong
that's great.
Pocha, but nice try.
Pocha? Poka?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not Poka?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You learned what Banchan actually was?
You didn't know what Banchan was?
Get his ass.
What did you think it was?
I
He
thought it was
fried
just
chicken.
the style of Korean fried chicken because of the chain banchan.
It's okay.
I guess so. You
It's
know
all right.
this now.
That's fine.
That's
Just
great.
drag me.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
fine.
hey,
We're
you know what?
We're about to get to Overview Sunday, so just start dragging me and don't stop. Just keep it coming.
Something I think about a lot, fellas, is something that you said to me many years ago at this point, which is that you like being wrong because whenever you're wrong, it's an opportunity for you to actually learn
You're right
and
now.
get better. And you're right. And you're right now. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
and now I know what banchan is.
just
I'll
remember
never
that-
forget
just
on
remember
account of
that-
how
just
much I've been
remember that,
viciously
Andy.
mocked about it for a whole weekend. All right. Sunday morning, I get cued into the virtually French cube, which is designed by Max, the organizer of this event, and is a cube where the creatures, for the most part, are virtually French by his definition, which means they kind of do one thing, if anything.
Look, we're fans of loosening up on restrictions, so that's
We
sort of
are.
the core concept, and there's a little.
And let me
little
tell you,
wiggle
there's some Spritzatura in this cube, which we'll get to. So, I believe I've played this cube once before. If I haven't played it before, I've definitely talked with Max about it in depth. And it is the kind of cube where you can cast Cruel Ultimatum, or you can play a
I
bunch
have experienced that.
or you can play a bunch of red-white little aggro dorks that have very little text on them, and there's just a lot of very simple cards, and I would say like very little sort of in the way of conscious synergy, which I actually like. Like it's a very sort of emergent synergy environment. Max has kind of included a bunch of cards he likes, and is up to you to see what to do with them. There's not like rigid things to do with each color combination per se. I took Fixing Lands pretty highly because I value card advantage pretty highly in environments like this where the curve is pretty high, and on the account of the creatures being virtually French, there are not a lot of creatures that are sort of accrue ongoing advantage on the board, right? Like they're going to have like one thing they do. You're not getting these huge titans that just run away with the game. So what I wanted to do was just draw more cards to be able to play more creatures and trade with my opponent as much as possible.
Seems like a great sort of overall evaluation of the environment.
Well, I thought so. I ended up in 4-color non-white, and I had, at the top of my curve, I did have Cruel Ultimatum and Meteor Golem and Affectionate Idric, but I had a decent sort of density of things, lower on the curve too. Like Wary Thespian was a cool card, which I really got a lot of mileage out of. It's a 2-mana 3/1 that surveils 1 on ETB or die, which is a great way to sort of just buy time and make sure you hit your land drops in an environment like this. I had Phyrexian Rager, Generous Stray, Pilgrim's Eye, Deathbridge Shaman, and Gravedigger and Psalm Simulacrum. I took all the things
Seems
that were just
great.
2-for-1s basically to try and buy time to the late game, and I was like, and I can't lose in a late game because I have all this card advantage and I have Cruel Ultimatum, and then I also have like loops with Mnemonic Wall and Cruel Ultimatum, and I can just keep doing this as many times as I need to do it. So round 1 I get paired against Nate, who is a member of our local playgroup, good player. And actually, Nate pointed out, we almost just never end up playing against each other on Tuesdays because we tend to be in the opposite cubes. We have different cube taste preferences. So we haven't played that much, despite him coming out every Tuesday for, I don't know, 18 months or
long time.
whatever.
It is funny how that does happen.
And we had a really long sort of back and forth set of games that were really grindy. I did actually lose the first game, which went pretty long. I thought there was no way I could lose, but I did eventually lose to a Broodmate Dragon and realized I had kind of had a little bit of a hole against flyers. And I sided into a Broken Wings, which I thought maybe help a little bit, but the Broodmate Dragon proved to be a little bit too much. I didn't have enough time to basically turn it into a race where I could, overwhelm with my ground creatures. So I lost that 1-2, but I felt good about my deck. My deck was doing its thing, and I also got to cast Cruel Ultimatum in a couple of those games. Like, it was working. Like, I felt like, cool, the deck does what it's supposed to do. Round 2, I won in another slogfest against another local bud. This is against Andrew. Andrew was playing blue-black kind of divinations and counterspells, which actually proved to be more of a problem for my deck than I would have guessed. Like, I did get there, but they were also really long, sort of drawn-out games with a lot of back and forth that it was actually really interesting. I had so many games. Well, I had 2 games where there were a lot of turns back to back where I could have just cast Cruel Ultimatum, could have just put it on the stack, but I was expecting him to maybe have a counterspell. I think he had like 4 or 5 in his deck. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing anything but Cruel Ultimatum, right? That's the best thing I possibly have. So unless I'm dead on board, if I don't resolve Cruel Ultimatum, I'm going to do anything else. And so there were like 6 turns in a row where I would draw something else. I'm like, I'll do the other thing instead, right? I just kept doing everything but Cruel Ultimatum. And that was keeping me stabilized or keeping me sort of ahead. And then in both those games, I eventually was like, all right, fine, I just cast this now. Do you have a counterspell? And he was like, no, I super lose. Like, if I'd done it earlier, I probably would have won earlier. But instead, I was kind of slow rolling, but in effect. But I think it was correct to do that. I was just like, save this to like weed out as many of the possible sort of moments for interaction as I possibly can. So again, I feel like the deck is doing what it's supposed to do and, functions in this environment. And then in round 3, I lost against a red-white aggro deck, which I knew was kind of my weak matchup. I was like, if this deck is a weakness, it's going to be against a really fast red-white aggro deck. And that's exactly what happened. I will say I had like an iconic bad beat in this match. I was playing against a player named Felix from the DC crew. Great guy. Basically, it's too much to describe. This episode's going long. Suffice it to say, he had like a game where he had like 2 outs in his whole deck and was hellbent, and I just had the game locked up in every other angle, and then just drew 1 of the 2 outs. And the way that it wasn't out was really obscure. He drew Glimmerlight, which is that equipment that makes a 1/1 creature, and what he needed was an equipment that gives +1/+1 and another creature from the same card. Like, that's what he needed to win that turn, and he drew exactly that, an equipment that makes another creature to have him play. And it was like, all right, well, I die to Xaxes because you have a 6-powered Trampler now in the air, and I only have my Pilgrim's Eye to block, and I'm at 5, which, it happens. It was fine, but I did definitely...
I mean, that sounds great for him.
Yeah, I think it was a good moment for him for sure. I was definitely a little bummed now that my record is 2-1, then 1-2, 1-2. Not how I want to be playing, but I do feel like this deck was still good. I don't have a problem with this deck. I think this deck did what it was supposed to do. Nathan went on to lose in the finals against Sylvia, actually, and they were actually playing basically for top 8. The winner of that game, or that match, was going to make top 8, and Nate lost to Sylvia in the finals, and she had a much, much better red-white aggro deck, frankly. No offense, Felix. So I felt like, okay, I barely lost to the guy that barely lost in the finals, and then I lost my bad matchup. I feel like the deck is fine, and just, variance, bad beats, whatever happened, and that's just how it goes sometimes. I will say, though, Nate had Krenko Tinstreak Kingpin in his deck, which...
Now, that's not exactly a French vanilla card.
All weekend, I just saw multiple people come up to Max and be like, why is this in this cube? And finally, at the end of the weekend, he was like, I gotta cut it because Greg said it doesn't belong. And I'm like, I told you it doesn't belong 2 days ago.
Look, you loosened
but I
the memory
respect
jar
Greg.
for him.
I did, in fact, loosen the memory jar lid. Yeah, I think, I don't know, that's one of those times where I think, Max is letting up on his sort of restriction because he felt the card was cool enough and warranted enough, but I really feel like it is just a huge power outlier, and it plays very, very well with what I think is one of the other huge power outliers in the cube, which is maybe more appropriate, which is Seer Slicer Goblin. Like, again, my 3-drops listener were Generous Stray, Phyrexian Rager, Deathbridge Shaman, Pilgrim's Eye, and then Nate's just like, well, I play Krenko 10th Street Kingpin, and I'm like...
Those don't block that super well.
And he has like 4 combat tricks in his deck, so it's even like if he untaps with it, he might just make 5 goblins. And I'm like, well, I can't beat 5 goblins ever in any world, so... That was definitely a little bit like, all right, well, I feel like that card doesn't really belong here, but not my cube, so just got beat by it.
It is interesting, though, because recently you've been talking more and more about how I think you are coming around on the idea of having large power outliers, right?
I am.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting because I think there is such an...
He wants the power outliers that he chooses.
Well,
To be honest,
here's the thing. Either I'm being
You
like
wanted to draft
totally
it.
hypocritical, right? And it's just like, if it's my cube and I'm designing it, I think it's cool to have power outliers. But as soon as I'm playing someone else's cube with power outliers, it just feels unfair. I could be being totally hypocritical. I more feel like it's a kind of like the nature of the power outlier thing. And to me, especially like efficient, proactive power outliers just feel like, what am I supposed to do here? Whereas
Krenko is especially a card that is
snowballing.
It snowballs, it gets bigger, so it's like I need my removal right now, or it's going to grow outside of the scope that my removal can function at.
I had an Arc Trail on my deck, and I drew it the turn after it had 3 toughness, and I was like, cool.
Yeah. All I was going to say is that I don't actually think that you're being hypocritical. I just think that it's about finding the balance, and that's sometimes there's more nuance there.
Would you say it's about making sure that the cards are in dialogue with each other?
It could be said.
What was your Sunday morning draft, Anthony? And you were live for top 8 at this point, having gone 3-0 and 2-1.
I was. Saturday morning, I got into the Ornithopter Sunday morning, exactly. That's what I said. Play back the tape.
Yeah, listeners, we're going to drop it right here.
Mark.
Saturday morning, I drafted the Ornithopter's Cube. I've played this a number of times and been pretty successful in it, so I was feeling pretty good, and I have fun with this cube too. Pack 1, pick 1, I opened Echoing Boon. It was right at the top of the pack, and I was like, well, we're just jumping into this feet first.
Not only is it one of the most powerful cards in the cube, but it's also pretty fun when you get to especially take it pack 1.
So this is a conspiracy that you name Ornithopter with, and then it doubles all your instant sorceries that target an Ornithopter. My deck came out pretty reasonably. I took fixing fairly highly and was looking for like the really powerful instant sorceries to be able to double. In particular, the ones I ended up with were things like Fists of Flame and Angel Fire Ignition, and especially Berserk. And my deck had some holes. I was really, really light on interaction. I mean, basically I had like a random Pernicious Deed that I felt like was kind of necessary, but that was pretty much it. 1 Fragmentize. I was really not sure how this deck was going to perform because it was very, very different from the decks that I've drafted. That might be a lie because, sure, I did still have a Glimpse of Nature and Showdown of the Skalds, which I think are just 2 of the best cards in the cube. My second pick was also Tolarian Academy, which I did put in the deck because there were some reasons, but...
The reasons that it taps for 4
for
to 10 mana is probably the main reason.
There were a couple ways that I could use that huge pile of effectively colorless mana in my deck. I was playing 4 colors without blue. I was also trying out the Great Henge, which is a thing that gets massively cost reduced if you have a huge creature.
What'd you think of
my
it?
hope was I'd be able to cast a bunch of combat tricks, make a huge Ornithopter, and then slam this second main phase and then use that to close out the game.
Because you were not tinkering or readying for
Nope,
it. Your
no,
plan was,
I was
I'm going to
just
cast
gonna cast
Great
it.
Henge.
And I got it in play a number of times, and it kind of functioned as an additional copy of Glimpse of Nature, plus gaining some life was not irrelevant in some games, and the counters were not irrelevant. I would say overall it was okay.
Great. That's what I
Fine.
love to hear.
First round, I was paired up against Nate. Not the Nate that you were playing against from our local group, but the same Nate that I faced off in the first round of the oldest school. The first game, honestly, he had a rough draw. It just got super flooded, and I kind of got to see what my deck did in a vacuum, and it worked. I just, cheesed him out, and that was good to sort of get confirmation that my deck could work, even though it was
if you're
not
playing
a great
against
match.
a goldfish,
Exactly.
your deck... No, I'm not calling you a goldfish deck. I'm saying that if your deck didn't function, you weren't putting up much of a fight.
Nate drew a goldfish of a hand. It happens.
Which happens. And also, to be fair, this is a thing that can happen in this kind of cube, right?
Absolutely.
Whether you get unlucky or maybe didn't quite fully understand the assignment, this is a cube that definitely has the potential for real non-games.
Especially you think about a standard environment where you can get mana flooded or mana screwed. Here you can also get ornithopter flooded and ornithopter screwed. Like there's this whole other axis of potential for high variance. Second game, he was much more like he drew a much better hand, was kind of getting me with impact tremors and casting wheels and doing that kind of stuff. And I was close to being able to have my big sort of combo, cast a bunch of spells on one ornithopter turn, but he got me just in time. Like, again, so many of these games felt like if somebody wasn't going to win, they would have won the next turn. Going into game 3, again, he was doing his thing, so this finally we felt like we had a really good game. He was doing his thing, but I managed to line up that one like huge turn, casting Berserk. Berserk is insane when you double it, so it's just my creature has 4 times the power, so you combine that with like one other combat trick, and your opponent's basically dead. So came out of that successful out of match 1, feeling pretty good about this and having fun playing this kind of weird deck. Round 2, I was paired up against aforementioned Vinny, who was a great opponent, trying to do like Time Spiral, or what's the Echo of Eons, kind of looping his deck and doing this combo with Jeskai Ascendancy. He had honestly a very sweet deck. And
this is the deck I alluded to earlier for doing really sick stuff. This is the first time I've seen somebody go off specifically with Retraction Helix, Welding Jar, Jeskai Ascendancy.
Yeah.
Just, okay, now I will draw my whole deck one card at a time and make all my ornithopters massively bigger and find whatever I need to finish the game, which, I mean, those are the kind of cards that Cube Designer, I put those in the cube hoping someone would do it, and I got to see Vinny doing it, and I was like, Vinny, my heart has grown 4 sizes today.
You'll love to see it. And I did kind of know with this deck that maybe I was just going to feel bad. Like, people were going to set up their combos, and then I was just going to be like, tee here's my stupid thing my deck does.
I'm a little rascal.
And I had this one game that it's just like, that one of the most important things about this is finding trample. Like, I just need a way to actually push through that damage so you don't just block it with one ornithopter. And so I had like Fists of Flame, Berserk, and Casting Wolf Run were like the 3 ways to do that. So I'd cast Glimpse of Nature, I had Showdown of the Skulls online, and also a Season of Growth in play. So I was like, okay, again, going back to the vibes were good. Vinny was really like tolerant of like, look, I'm going to help you track some of these things you need to track because we need to keep track of cards you've drawn, spells you've cast, creatures versus non-creatures, so we're putting on counters and drawing cards correctly. Did manage to dig to find Berserk, which gave me trample, and managed to win round 2 as well. So again, I was going into the finals for the 3rd time and was paired against Zach Barish, friend of the show. And again, just like an incredible player, he's been...
And a shark of this cube.
He's a shark of this cube in particular. I don't know if he's ever dropped a match in it after 3 times he's played it.
He has not in paper. He has digitally.
It's still pretty good. We don't count those digital games.
That's right. We're gatekeeping. That's not real magic.
And he's been the champion of a number of these types of events. So I was not feeling optimistic, but again, this was kind of a weird deck that I could just get lucky and cheese him out. I did win 1 game, but he just like... He had a very good deck to deal with this as well because he had a bunch of specifically bounce interactions. So I just lost. He got me.
Yeah, Barish had a cool, like almost mono blue in terms of spells. Like there were a couple things he was splashing, but it was mostly counter spells. It was counter spells, and like he was splashing Duress and like casting it off of filtering mana through Mycosynth Gardens so he could actually play the Duress, and really just demonstrated how, yeah, like a Hercules Recall effect or 2 and a bunch of counterspells and really skillful play can get you through even a pretty busted conspiracy. Another fun finals to watch. It was really nice that I got to watch you play at a bunch of awesome finals all weekend after my 1-2 scrub outs were over. I could walk over and watch you battle it out.
Do you feel like you've learned anything?
About the cube or about my own play, or...
Do you think you picked up any tips from the way I was playing?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Oh, I mean...
Okay, you're acting astonished by my question, but I got a chance to watch most of Julian and Anthony's game when they were playing in Theseus, and one of my favorite things to do is just watch good players.
Yeah, for sure.
And watch like a long 4 matchup. And I felt like it is always helpful to me.
At least watching 100 Ornithopters, I'm sure any sort of ability to learn from good players is entirely overshadowed by me just concerned about what the cube is doing and wanting to like see what the cards are, how the cards are functioning. But yeah, I mean, you've been playing great, and your great play continues, and you did squeak into top 8 on breakers, basically.
I did. Yeah, one other thing I just want to say about this draft, which was interesting, was drafting with a conspiracy that you just always have access to. Like, you just have it. It was really, honestly, more difficult than I expected to make that switch in my brain and read, for example, Fist of Flames and not say, like, oh, the ceiling of this card is I get 2 cards. But, like, no, this card is just a different card for me now.
Cards,
I always get 2 of these. Berserk, always X4, or I can distribute it if I want. But, yeah, I mean, that context shift did take me some effort to make sure I really focused on.
I would love to do just that. Get to draft that conspiracy pack 1 and
Absolutely.
then just like go the whole.
And I've wanted to do it the whole time, so A+. Glad it's here.
I still maintain that it is cool for this environment for that exact reason. And even decks like yours, which were great, it sounds like you had pretty close matchups, with the exception of the sort of gold fishing game, which happens every now and then.
Yeah, they were close matchups. They weren't necessarily interactive matchups, but it was about like navigating. Yeah, how do I find the line to kill them before they combo off?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interaction. If people put it in their deck, then the matchups tend to be interactive. But I think there's at least, like, it sounded like there were moments where either I'm going to die to a combo next turn, or I got to find the kill this turn, right?
Exactly,
and that's a way of, like, the decks aren't being strictly interactive, but at least they're on the same sort of tempo,
They're
right?
in dialogue with each other.
They're in dialogue with each other. All right, we got to pick up the pace a little bit. We got to get to Cube Night pretty soon. Last draft of the day for me was Aaron's Kamigawa Remastered Cube. I am 2-1-1-2-1-2, and just as my last chance to get one of the pins I designed myself and be able to wear it without stealing Valor. And I end up drafting the Blue-Black Ninjas deck, which has been a deck that Aaron has had a sort of fraught relationship with throughout the history of this cube. This cube breaks singleton for a lot of cards, but it also includes pretty much every power outlier you would expect from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, most of the power outliers from the Commander product, minus things like Shorikai, which are just kind of offensively power outliers. But it also has a wide power level band, and it's a huge cube. I think at least 550, maybe even bigger, because it's just got a bunch of room for all these extra cards. And I felt like my seat was very open because I was wheeling decent ninjas, not incredible ninjas, but I was wielding things like Prosperous Thief and Moonblade Shinobi and Moon Circuit Hacker, which are like key role players in the ninjas deck. But I was not seeing very much removal. I passed a blue-black land like pick 3 when I was not yet in blue and not yet in ninjas. I had taken 3 good black cards, and I was like, all right, I'll take this really good green-black-gold card over a fixing land here because I'm still staying open or whatever. I took the next blue-black fixing land I saw, and then I saw a third one. The last one I saw was in middle of pack 3. At this point, I had plenty of playables, and I told myself going into pack 3, I'm taking fixing land over anything. And then Miss Syndicate Naga comes waltzing into the room, and I'm like, oh, Miss Syndicate Naga. I can't say no to Miss Syndicate Naga. And I feel it was correct to take Miss Syndicate Naga there because it is enough of a huge power outlier in that deck, and it was not going to wheel, certainly. So, yeah, I ended up playing 1 fixing land, blue-black ninjas.
I had a funny similar situation since you brought it up where in my first draft of the oldest school, I was really, really hard up on fixing. I think I had like 1 duel, maybe, probably not even. And so I was just like going into pack 2, I have to take a Bayou over anything. Like that's what I need. I open a pack that has Bayou, Sengir Vampire, Vertoloth. And I was like, well, okay, I know what I said.
You might wheel a Bayou.
I know what I said. So I took Sengir Vampire despite my promise to myself to take Bayou over everything. Wheeled Bayou, Vertoloth. Took Vertoloth.
Oh my god.
It felt so good.
That's
Love
awesome.
it. So, round 1 here, I played against Bobber in round 1, who is a great opponent from DC, and frankly, my deck seemed cracked. We played 2 fast games, and I just absolutely crushed him. No offense, Bobber, you know this is what happened. Then I was like, you want to play a couple extras? We played more games, and I just continued to crush. And I was like, okay, maybe my deck's good. I don't want to get my hopes up, but like it was just firing on all cylinders. I was ninjutsuing things and then ninjutsuing my ninjutsu things and just generating a bunch of card advantage. I also I had 3 copies of Lethal Exploit, The Life of Toshiro Umezawa, March of Wretched Sorrow, and Price of Fame. Like I had a lot of removal for a cube that is, generally speaking, like much lower power level than something like Ship of Theseus. I had more removal in my deck than I had in my Ship of Theseus deck. Round 2, I get paired against the same local Nate who I had that huge slogfest with the draft prior in the virtually French cube. Nate is on what was a completely open green-white enchantment deck in the Neon Dynasty, mostly Neon Dynasty, basically. I mean, this cube has cards from original Kamigawa, but there's not that many that can hang on power level, so it's mostly like a Neon Dynasty set. And it turns out there was a whole other Ninjas player that was just taking different cards, and there's just enough of them in the packs that We were both at the table. My deck was not as open as I felt it was, but he was the one taking all of the fixing lands, as you might expect, and also had just had a different set of good Ninja cards I never got to see because he had picked them before they got to me anyway. And we had an even more, like, this went to time, basically. We finished our, like, last turn, like, as the timer went up and someone walked up and said we're going to turns, and it was just huge, like, long, complicated games that were, like, really mind-melting. I lost the first one because Nate had multiple copy of Boseiju Who Endures the Boseiju Who Endures, the Boseiju Saga that then flips over into a creature with reach with power equal to the number of lands you control, and power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. It's a 4-drop. He had multiple copies of Blossoming Prancer, which is this 5-drop 4/4 that also has reach. Like, it just, his deck was just make a bunch of game pieces and, like, gain life and, like, throw huge bodies in the way of the thing I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to get out ahead of him, and then if I can't get out ahead of him, I'm trying to eke out damage here and there with, like, flyers and bounce spells, or, like, my one copy of Changeling Outcast. I sided into Futurist Operatives, which are, like, 4-mana unblockable creatures that you can pay to untap to give them more power and toughness when they're attacking. Just, like, I like, had to scrap if I didn't win in the early game. Lost game 1, super long game. Game 2 was also a crazy long game where I was actually stuck on 2 lands for 5 turns. I hit my first 2 land drops. I ninjutsu'd a Prosperous Thief, which is a ninja that makes treasure tokens, and I used those treasure tokens for a couple turns to cast more spells. Then he exiled my Prosperous Thief, and I was just stuck on 2 lands, and my curve was pretty low. I was still able to cast a spell most turns, but I was just, like, had a good aggressive start, and when I finally drew a couple extra lands, I was able to close that game out in the very, very end. And then game 3, I just got completely color screwed. I kept a hand, which I think I should have kept. I had 3 black spells, 3 swamps, and 1 card with a single blue pip, and I just never drew blue until I was, like, way, way, way behind. And just definitely feeling a little defeated. Like, Nate's now got me twice in these, like, really long matches back and forth. Thought my deck was good, but just didn't, like, it fired on all cylinders against poor Bobber in 4 games. Like, it did not miss a step. And then against Nate, it was like, I'm missing steps here and there. I'm not doing what the deck is supposed to do. And, you know, we scraped by in this really long match. So that was kind of disappointing, but, you know, losing to a friend is cool. And Nate was having such a great weekend. I was just kind of fried of it. So I was just exhausted, right? Like, my brain was just kind of toasted. Then round 3, I am playing against Mike, who is actually semi-local and has come down to a Cube night or 2 with us over the past year. Good guy. And here, I'm fried. I'm feeling defeated over the weekend. I'm just trying to scrape by with a 500 record if I can win this match. And my deck just does not function. Like, I have to mull to 5 in game 1, and I keep an okay 5. I threw away 2 1-landers that were just non-starters. And then I kept an okay 5 because I had Thousand Face Shadow, which for the purposes of this hand is just a 1/1 flyer. I was like, okay, here's a 1/1 that I can play on 1 mana and maybe get in with a flyer. And I had Moon Circuit Hacker to then ninjutsu it on turn 2. And I was like, this can maybe pull me out of this multi 5. And I, like, keep my 5, and then I pass, and then Mike just says, okay, turn 1, he just played another 1/1 flyer. I forget what it was. Some, like, dinky common, just 1/1 flyer. And I'm like, well, now my hand's gone. And then the second game, I don't even really know what happened. It was like, my deck did its thing, kind of, but I just feel like I got better carded. And then what eventually happened that turned the game is he played Ao the Dawn Sky, one of the big white dragon, the better one. Played this huge white dragon, the 5/4 with a good death trigger. And I was like, I can still beat this. I have bounce spells. I have this high-speed hover bike to tap it at an opportune moment. I can, like, beat this dragon. It's possible. And then I just got absolutely blown out by a main deck Infest. Like, he had an Infest variant that was main deck, and it just killed all of my creatures at 4/1 me. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, I'm done. Another one, too. And I got to be honest, I've said before in this show, and we've talked about the fact that I come into these events, and my only goal really is, like, I just want to be a gracious opponent. I want people to have fun playing against me. I don't want to be, like, some weird, salty, jerk. And I think I maintained that, but it was really hard. It was really, really hard at this point. I mean, I came into this event going over the course of the previous 2 weeks at Cube Night and with these Roto matches, my record has been 3-9. So I came into this event in a huge slump and just feeling like, man, I've been losing a whole lot. I don't know if I'm playing bad, drafting bad, getting unlucky, but
all week I was like, brother, you're due.
You did say that a number of times.
I was like, don't worry, it's coming back around.
Yeah, and then of course left this weekend 4-6. Does that make sense? 1-2, 1-2, 2. Yeah, so left this weekend 4-6. Just so you don't comment, 5-7, not 4-6. 5-7. Went to art school. Which is not a terrible record, but I will say it felt bad after, coming in, having lost a whole bunch. And I wish it didn't feel that bad. I wish I could just, have a good time and not, feel bad about it. But I don't know. It's like, I felt like I didn't quite understand the assignment maybe fully in Ship of Theseus, or maybe like the blue-black deck looks different than what I drafted because I kind of ran up against two decks where I don't think I could have played any better. And looking back on the draft, I think the only thing I could have done is just not be in those colors, right? Or do something wildly different. Then I felt like I did understand the assignment, but got unlucky or just kind of ran up against variants in the Virtually French cube, which I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't understand the assignment. The deck is actually bad. And then in this cube, I felt like I had a good deck, and it just, again, didn't happen. And it's just like, how many times can you go into a draft and think that your deck is good, and you go 1-2 and be like, I think the deck was still good and just got unlucky? Like, if that happens 5 times over the course of 2.5 weeks, you start to be like, this has to be me. Like, I don't know what's going on here. So, yeah, it was kind of rough.
Maybe time for a little introspection there.
There's always that guy that you paid to do some training with.
Brian Koval?
Yeah. You've already established a relationship. Like, you probably figure out, you already know how to pay him and everything.
That's true.
You're just saying there's help.
You're not alone. I could
in this.
call
There's
Brian
support.
Koval, and
it was helpful, right?
Yeah, I thought
at the
so.
time,
Yeah. No,
I thought it was
so
interesting.
Too.
You could always reach back out.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. It was a rough weekend for me, but playing Magic wise. But the actual event was fantastic. The vibes were fantastic. Seeing friends was amazing. And I genuinely, the highlights of the whole event for me were other people having success. Not against me. That was not fun. But when they're having success in my own cubes against other players, that was really fun for me to see. Like, seeing the next people drafted in the Neoclassical cube and the 100 Ornithopters cube was a huge highlight for me, and I had a great time watching the nonsense go down in both of those cube environments.
Anthony, do you have final thoughts?
But did we hit your last draft?
We didn't, and we're light on time. I can basically just keep it light and tell you that what happened to me is I got 6 hours of sleep because of daylight savings time. And
that was a feature.
Yeah, and
or a bug.
Honestly, I'm fucking 33 years old, and I was feeling really fried. And by the second draft on Sunday, I just crashed out. I lost my first 2 matchups going to game 3 in tight games after playing Virtually French, and I was like, I literally need to go home and take a nap. And that's what
real.
I did. Yeah, that's what I did. But I will say, before heading into that 4th draft, before the top 8, after the first 3 drafts, I was ranked 14th amongst
awesome.
70 people or something. And that's the best that I have done in a competitive event, and it felt really good. And I think I lost 12 spots after crashing out on the last one. But this is just to say, if you are the person at your local play group who doesn't trophy every single week, hang in there, little tomato. You can get better, and sometimes it happens slowly over time. So,
and now what we're all waiting for, the top 8 report.
Yeah, well, I was feeling really good at this point. I had, in my 3 drafts, I had gone to the championship in each one and gone to a 3rd game in each one. Only trophied one of the 3, but, against great players and really, close, interesting games. The top 8 cube, it turns out, Max, I was really honored. He chose my main cube, regular cube, so you might think that I'd be extremely familiar and know exactly what I was doing and have a huge advantage, and that would have been concerning. I was honestly,
that wasn't the case.
Thank God we don't have to worry about that. I was just feeling really good about so many of these events, they often feature a clone of the MTGO Vintage Cube or something that is similar, or at least something that's very high powered. And so I really appreciate that Max was willing to try something that is very different. And I think that the regular cube is an interesting choice in this context because it's a lot lower powered, but I think it is very skill testing. It's not about just oh yeah, I got my Tinker on turn 1 and now you're dead. It's
not about just playing Krenko 10th Street Kingpin and your opponent plays a generous stray.
It is about just really tight technical play. I sat down, opened my pack, I saw 2 cards that I was really considering, Fearless Fledgling and Emiria Angel, and I was like, I should take this really great 2-drop, but man, I was just feeling so good looking at my cube in this context that I never would have imagined years and years ago when I started it, and just Emiria Angel's been in there the whole time. I built the cube because I wanted it to have a
play
home.
Emiria Angel, yeah.
And so I just compared to how tense I was feeling in especially that match against Julian, I was just feeling very relaxed and just took the Emiria Angel and was like, here we go. Ended up just feeling like there was a lot of black removal coming my way, drafted mostly black in my first pack, and then just felt like green was super open, all the last cards in the packs were green. So Emiria Angel chilled in my sideboard, and I drafted what I thought was a very solid green-black deck with very good top end, including Bolas' Citadel and a ton of removal. My first match against Josh, I just kept a hand that was way too heavy on lands, and I was like, well, I've got my good top end here. Like, I can draw out of this. I think this is probably better than... No, I didn't. I knew this was a mistake. But I kept the hand, and he just had a really good aggressive start and just stomped me. Like, I got to be the NPC in this game, and I was comfortable with that. I knew that was the risk, that if he had an aggressive deck, I was not winning with that hand. Game 2 was a lot more interesting. We kind of had huge boards trying to figure out little edges, and I had lots of outs I could have drawn into, but unfortunately I just had sided out some of my big top end because I knew he was really aggressive.
Unfortunately, I had sided out some of my outs. That's one of the worst feelings. We've all been there.
Yeah, I was like, I can't keep all these 6-drops in here, but I needed them eventually. Yeah, and he played well, like navigated that big board state and killed me. So in round 1, I was out. I did play another round against Keldon, and I beat Keldon pretty handily. I just like that, all that removal, when I actually drew it, was very good against his aggressive red-white deck. So it was fun matches. I really enjoyed it. And then the best part was then I just like sat and watched some of the other games happening, watched Sylvia and Rachel play. Sylvia just had this incredible black-white aristocrats deck, and I mean, just could go wide and sort of keep people busy, and then just all of a sudden, like, I drain you for 13. And it was really fun to sort of watch them navigate these really technical moments, them being all these players. And then Sylvia and Holly faced off in the finals, and yeah, I mean, it was just really satisfying to see. So much about this event felt like a culmination of so much of the great community that we've built here, and the fact that we're just, able to foster a very different kind of Magic experience. It was extremely rewarding and fulfilling. And also, one of the things that I contributed to this event was I built a trophy, which
Best trophy.
Again, the event is based on the salt box, these big yellow wooden bins. I laser cut all the components for a little mini salt box that went sort of 45-degree angle on top of a stand, and Andy designed the logo and stenciled it on the front, and I'm just so happy with how this trophy came out.
It came out so good. You did such an amazing job.
I appreciate that, and it was fun to see somebody win my cube, win this trophy that I'm really proud of making.
It's so sick. Also, the pins are really
nice. The pins
nice.
that you designed came out great.
Yeah, the
Max printed them so big. They're so big.
Yeah, there's some big ass pins.
I think to me, like, the smaller they are, they actually feel more like precious, you know? Like you think about like, little gems or like, precious
They've
objects.
Just been getting bigger. You see, here's the CubeCon.
Yes, they've
2.
just been getting bigger. It's alarming.
Here's CubeCon 3. Could just give you a tour of all my pins.
Okay, yes. Congratulations, Anthony. It's quite a few pins.
I do
You're
agree
doing
that
great.
it might be nice to keep them smaller next time, but they're pretty cool. What do you guys think about Sarah asking if she could just have a pin?
I think Sarah can have a pin.
I agree, but Julian was like, no.
Well, if Julian might give her grief about it all the time, so it's a question for Sarah. Are you willing to take the grief? But
totally.
I don't know. I think it's up to you whether you care about earning your pin or not. I personally would not. Like, I'm not putting a pin on my backpack, even though I designed the damn things, because I feel like I want to earn it. But if you don't want to earn it, you just want a pin, you should have a pin. Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful what you were just saying about being able to draft regular cube in the finals.
Yeah, really
That's
awesome. It is a culmination of a lot of things.
Great job this weekend. You played well. Also, great job to you. You lost well.
Perhaps even a bigger accomplishment.
I truly mean
it's
that.
way harder for me. I feel like to lose
that.
well than it is to win. I do have one question. We can close this out. We're out of time here, but how would you have felt if you had won this top 8 draft of your own cube and walked out of there with your own
trophy that you had made?
Incredible. See, that would have been so cool.
This is the thing I can't.
It's much better that it didn't happen that way.
I think it's so good it didn't happen that way.
Very low risk of it happening.
People would not come back next year. They'd be like, this sucks.
I was
that
like,
was crazy.
Like, if I were you, there's no way I'd be comfortable with that. Like, I probably would have dropped the top 8 draft just because the idea of that happening, I'd be so socially uncomfortable with.
Don't live with
That's just me. That's fully just me. I'm not saying there's any like.
So honestly, like, going back to how I think that this is a pretty skill testing cube, I think that like I felt.
You just felt confident you were going to lose, basically?
I felt confident in, like, the Ornithopter cube to some degree, not necessarily because of who else was in the pod, but, like, that's a cube I have some insider knowledge on. But the way that people were building their decks and the way that people were playing, like, these players are clearly much more skilled than me, so I was not so worried about it.
Yeah.
I think it would have been crazy to have won that and walked out there with your own trophy and your own cube.
It would have been awesome.
It would have been weird.
Instead,
for sure.
Instead, I went to somebody who, when somebody else was like, I got to see them be like, hey, did you look inside? Do you know what's inside? And she was like, yeah.
Salt.
It's salt. Which is so cool.
I mean, I guess it just speaks to the different kind of people we are, because I had like a minor emotional crisis when I won my own draft of 100 ornithopters at the thing, which is maybe we're just different people, you know?
I mean, I think that there was a lot of different contexts, and I mean, context both in terms of like... Yeah, lots of context.
The context matters.
Context on many scales.
Yeah, a lot of
different.
A lot of ifs, a lot of what have
Hey, I
yous.
got nothing else to say about that. Hey, so joke's on you for saying that I wasn't going to go back to any of my old bits. I've got something I'd like to end with here.
Okay, great.
Oh, God.
No, listeners.
Checks watch. We're okay. We're still gonna make
No,
Cube Night.
no. Yeah. Keen listeners will know that I'm not going back to my trying to unban banned cards, but I do want to, and you can add a little.
You want to try and get cards banned?
To be clear, keen listeners don't know what your bid is. The entire thing was censored last time.
Oh, right. Well, I was just going to say, maybe you can include like I can get a little theme song so we can do like Dirt Shout Out Roundup right now.
Sure, I'll make a little ditty for you. What else do I have going on in my life?
I can make this real quick, all
We
right?
do have to get to Cube Night.
It's the Dirt Shout Out Roundup.
Shouts out to Sylvia. Congrats. Big ass septums for the win.
I was honestly
yeah.
so happy to see Sylvia win the entire event. Sylvia was such a great opponent in round one, and I was rooting for her despite being close personal friends with 4 of the players in the top 8. I was like,
Who all got eliminated immediately.
I kind of want Sylvia to take this down.
No, which is great. Shout out to my boy Ebola Bukake. You guys are
What's next?
you're less excited about that
No,
one.
we're just listening. I don't, do you
All
think
right.
it's
He
supposed to be
wasn't
funny?
there, so
He's
just
cool.
general.
Shout out to the Nintendo Switch activation button on the home button.
Patrick
on the
learned this
controller.
weekend he can turn on his Nintendo Switch without going to the console and pressing it directly.
Mark my words.
This is a real...
Mark-
now you know this moment.
Yeah, so listeners, I want you to tweet hashtag now you know if you too just learned that you can turn on the Nintendo Switch by holding down the home button. I'm sure that one of the 5,000 people listening to this right now didn't realize that. So
We're here to spread knowledge and help people.
happy to make somebody's day. Shout out to the Philly homies, Parker and Roja.
And Holly, who
And
was...
Juan.
And Holly and Juan.
And we have to name all the other ones now.
Now you have to name all of
Monica and
them.
the rest.
Monica.
And the
And
rest.
then lastly, just shout out to Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
Shout out to fried chicken.
All right, we got to go.
Fried chicken is how I felt Sunday night.
I've been thinking about how you always answer the outro by also thanking Andy. So would you mind letting me take the response when we hit it?
Great. That brings us to the end of this episode of Lucky Paper Radio. All the music for this show is produced by DJ James Nasty. All the Magic Cards are produced by Wizards of the Coast. This podcast is produced by Thinking Really Hard About Magic Cards and Speaking to Microphones About It, Anthony and Patrick. Thank you for the gift of friendship and for the gift of Cube.
You're very welcome.
You're also... Thanks for being
That was
part-
what you were planning? That was what you were looking forward to? You were like, he's going to say that, and I'm going to
turning
say,
exactly
I'm
the
going to say,
color.
you're welcome.
the exact color that Ian turned when you arm wrestled for the win last
Okay,
week.
shout out to the fact that I did crush Ian in an arm wrestling tournament last Cube Night. That was sick.
Tournament?
Yeah.
They did a round robin, the two of them.
I think it was
Maybe
one arm wrestling
maybe
thing,
tournament's the
and it
wrong
was because
thing.
he started laughing in the middle about how red you were turning, and he couldn't stop laughing.
No,
was
he was
turning
turning
red.
red.
Oh, that's true. He was turning
Yeah,
really
I got
red.
his ass. I told you.
He started laughing at his own turning red.
Maybe I only told Anthony this, but I texted him later and I was like, hey, thanks for being a good sport and arm wrestling me. That was fun. And he responded and he said, why are you so strong? Why did we arm wrestle? I haven't stopped thinking about it since we left Cube Night.
I will say, just from like appearances, if you look at Ian's arm and your arm, you're like, well, Ian's going to win.
He plays baseball and he climbs. There's like
Yeah.
twice as big as mine.
He's got like a big bicep, but the thing about arm wrestling, it's not in the bicep. That's the thing. People don't know.
It's all right here.
It's all in the heart.
In the heart.
Listeners.
We have to go. I'm turning this podcast off right now.